Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Stand Up Your Tubes, where we control the tubes and the tubes do not control us. So, this is the latest creation in the Light Up Your Tubes playlist on Stand Up Your Tubes. And I hope you'll think they're as adorable as I do. And they're ready for the circus. They're all adorned and bedazzled and bejeweled. And I think that they're pretty cute to look at. But they are a little something special, which is why they're in Light Up Your Tubes, because they are, in fact, for your child's nightstand, or if you're a child at heart, for you, it's a nightlight. They're adorable. They're made from things you can find in your own pantry or your kitchen. This one is a peanut butter jar. It was plastic and cut down. This is a canning jar. They're both about the same size, and they both make beautiful night lights. So I hope that you will stay and watch the tutorial, that you will make some night lights, and that you will also tune into Testimony Tuesdays. They're the testimonies of people that have just walked through the fire and come out victorious. And even though some of them are a little hard to listen to, there's always going to be victory at the end. When I do the introduction, you're going to see this little brown seal, but the one in the tutorial is going to be gray. I'm steering away from white because little fingers, this is going to be a nightlight most likely on a child's table, and we don't want little fingers to get it dirty. And everything will pull off, so it technically could go in the washing machine. And this one will come right off the base. And I used a mason jar on this one. It's about 3.5 inches. It is bigger than this little one that you might put jams or jellies in. You can see that this one's about 2.5 inches tall. This one's about a more globular. I didn't order it, and it was over at Margaret's house, so I don't know exactly, but it was bigger around. But the base is the same. It takes the same size lid. So this could also work. It just wouldn't be as tall. But this one, what I did is I took a plastic cutting mat, and they come 3 in a pack at Walmart. They're waffly on one end, so they're a little thicker. If I'm using a mason jar, take the mason jar lid off, pop the centerpiece out, trace around it with a Sharpie, cut the Sharpie line off. Then, as you can see on this one, I just did a slit all the way over to one end where I wanted my cord to come out. And this is a color change yard. I'll tuck right up in there. And when the last fairy light goes in there, it can't come through that because it's so snug on it. And then here's our USB end coming out. And when we plug that in, then we get our cute little fairy light lit up inside. Has a little ball on it. We're going to shape the body. It's so easy. It has so few tubes. So let's assume we don't have that jar and we don't want to go buy a pack of mason jars. Well, this is a peanut butter, and it's the smaller peanut butter, so it's about this tall, but it's too tall. So what I did is just punched a little hole and cut around all the way around with my scissors, and these were perfectly able to cut it. Then for the top part, once I got it apart, I just slit up about 3 or 4 places so that it could compress a little bit and pushed it down inside the base. I could never get the sticky off of it, even soaking it, scrubbing it with a scrubby, it just wouldn't come off, but that's going to actually benefit us. So with the USB fairy lights that you can get on Amazon and probably other places too, I ordered mine. They were half price, almost half price. I was so excited. I ordered 3 sets so I can make 9 of these. They even make an extender for them that has an on-off switch that will give you maybe an extra 5 feet so you can plug into a wall outlet down on your baseboard. And then up here, you would have an on-off switch. I have those in my Amazon cart I'm considering buying. And it's just the little one for charging lights and whatnot. It's not for transmitting data. And so with this plastic lid on here, I just took my little 4-volt drill that I sometimes crank my Addi and Sentro with. One little tiny hole here, just big enough drill bit to get the fairy light to go in. Fed all the fairy lights in so that they're just all wound up in there. And when I got to the last fairy light, so it wouldn't pull back through, I took a piece of my light yarn. I didn't want to use like a bright purple, so I used this gray, tied about 4 knots in it, and now that cannot pull through. And that's securing it, and that will become, we want to put that little hole close to the edge because that's where we're feeding out our wire. We don't want it in the middle. We just want that, because then we don't want this to be catching on the lid and rocking, because that's where they put one of those little heat sleeves over it to join it to the lights, I think, and to this. So this is going to be the back of it. Now, when we make the tube to cover it, and believe me, the lights are going to shine out of this. A single thickness. We went 33 rows. I started with 10 of a bright color, and that becomes the band, like on here, that's going to roll up and make it have a little presence on the table. It just comes out a little bit. Then I just took some bright colors, and believe me, my test tube was pink, and that yellow light coming out of pink is not a good look. I'm warning you right now, it doesn't look good. So stay away from the light pink that clashes with the, or a little bit of a golden glow of these lights. So I'm going with bright primary colors. I want to end up with 33 rows, so I'm starting with 10 of the one I want to roll up on the base, and I love the purple, so I'm starting with the purple, then 3 rows, 3 rows, 3 rows, 3, and then just however you want to stripe it. Do them 5, do them 2, whatever look you like. And then for the top, I know it's going to come over the top and be cinched up. Just this much is going to show anyway, so I finished up with my purple, ending up with 33. And since we're rolling the bottom, it's going to be very forgiving if your jar is 3.5 inches or 4 inches on the inside. To get rid of your jogs, because when your light's on, you'll see them. Snug each one up, turn it over, see if you got rid of the jog, and if you have, then tie 3 knots and cut them off nice and short, so when the light is on, you don't see these threads coming through. And let's put those at the back where the cord is coming out, because most likely that's going to be facing the wall, and we're going to just snug it up over the top. And I've already secured my top like a beanie. So pull the top up like a beanie, put 3 or 4 good knots in here, and then I just took my yarn and went around 1 full circle and cut it off so that my end wasn't showing up down in the orange or the yellow. I just kept it right up there on the top. The fact that I couldn't get the adhesive off of my jar, no matter how hard I tried, is going to benefit us. It's not going to be a necessity, but I think it's going to help hold this tube in place. And, you know, a thought, I have some really thin, about this wide, 2-sided tape that is totally transparent. That would be another thing you could do. Put the 2-sided tape around if you don't have any sticky on yours, and then this would just kind of adhere to that. And it does a pretty good job of holding. So we want to get our stripes looking straight, so they're going straight around, especially since mine wants to grab onto the adhesive. And then this bottom just rolls up and sits on the table. And so take your thread that you cast on with, because this was your cast on row. You started with 10, and then I just went in multiples of 3 until I got to 33. And pull it and snug it really snug up against this jar. Snug, snug, you know, maybe control how it's snugging up so it's not just all in one place. And then put a couple knots in it, and then I actually knot it to the tube itself, and then bury that thread and keep it down around the bottom here where your lid is, so you're not seeing a loose end up into your fairy light. Like when it's on, you don't want to see a purple thread traveling this way. So we're going to keep it down on the bottom. And now when we turn this on, we're going to have adorable night light. It's not as bright in real person as it looks here, but it's plenty of light coming out. Just be on a child's nightstand, or on your nightstand if you're a child at heart. And so the base is ready. Now let's work on our seal. This is so incredibly easy. So we're going to do one tube, and that's going to be the inner tube that's 50 rows. We're going to do an outer tube that's 60 rows. And this is my cast off end because it's a little bit neater. This is my cast on. You can see that it's pretty loopy on both tubes. For the 50 row tube, I'm going to cinch up one end like a beanie and then tie a knot in it and use that yarn to pull it into this top 60 row tube. And I want that inner tube to stop right here. So what I did, I counted back 10 rows and put a bobby pin across in my 11th row with the yarn end from the inner tube sticking out. To cinch this in, oh, well, let's first of all secure our end. So we want this really to be spread out so we have fins. So we're going to actually take the end of our tube, and unlike normally where we would put 2 or 3 fingers in and cinch it up, we're going to just stretch it out as far as it can go. Then I tied off that yarn and buried it, but I took this long yarn from my inner tube, brought it out to the side, tied a little knot, and then went under the little double loops on both ends and secured it across and tied it off. Then we've got to cinch it up a little bit right here, so I took another piece of yarn and went from, I decided this was my bottom, so I went over a row, under a row, over and under in that 11th row, so 10 rows remain exposed. Brought it to the underneath side, cinched it up, tied 2 or 3 knots in it, then took one of the ends of that yarn and brought it to the other side, visually found my center and went over, under till I got out to the end, flipped it over, under, just brought it down, tied a few knots in it to get this look, and buried the end. And then roll it over and visually say, here's my center. So where we're going to stuff it, because we're going to have it folded up like this, and here's its nose. So let's just take another look at the brown one. Isn't that cute? So we want very little stuffing in here so that when we bring it up, this little tail will just kind of go back. We want the majority of our stuffing in its little belly, but we don't want to overstuff it because we're going to be sucking it up. And then this is going to become its pointed little nose, and we'll have stuffing in it, but we're not going to overstuff it. And we want him to have a little chest like this one does. He has a little chest, or she. So this is, you know, got some firmness to it. But when we tie its little neck piece on, that's going to cinch it back up and give our head some shape. So a little bit of down here, a little bit more into the middle. And then you want a little bit more coming up for the nose, and so your nose will be a little higher than this part right here. So we have the center marked. I have a bobby pin right across the top to hold the rows together right here so that the inner one's not slipping back. And I just went and got a couple little eyes. And they're not real big. They're this size. They're cat eyes, but I'm going to run the pupils from left to right and come back 4. So I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4. And the reason I say 4 is because on my prototype I came back 7, and then I wished that the eyes had been up here a little bit, because when I popped this eye up, I thought that was a better place for it. So we live and learn. That's why we do a prototype. So 1, 2, 3. Let me count. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. I want to have a finger width between them. We'll see if that happens. 1, 2, 3, 4. And there we go. I'm going to pop the backs on them. Would I like them better if they were round? Yes. But I'm using what I have, and it's still going to be adorable. My seal's going to have cat eyes. Okay, so to get the body bend, we're going to take a double strand of yarn, and that's just so it's nice and secure. Going to tie it off right at the back here, and then go over, under, over 2 bars, under 2 bars. We want to keep it back on our prototype where the neck would be. So I stopped back here. Our eyes are going to be a little further forward. So just visually stopping right about here. So let's thread a yarn up and get going. So just to get started, I'm marking the row that's going in between my 2 little eyes. So I know that that's the one I want to go up in. And actually I wanted to do a double, so I have extra stability. So here's my row, and I'm going to tie it on. I'm going to go under 2 rows right at the fin here. Leave myself enough yarn to bury. And I'm going to tie a good secure knot right here. And now the needles. And where my pin is, that's the row. I'm going to go over 2 bars and 2 bars, over, under. I can take the pin out now because I'm in this row. And when we pull on this, it's going to give us our body shape. And we're going to stay back behind the eyes, about where we would want to put our frilly little circus collar on. So for now, I'm going to just let this be. I'm going to snip my needle off of it. I may need to come up another couple rows. I might want to adjust this, so I'm just going to let this stay here for now. But for these, I'm going to just give them one more good tie and bury them. Now, if I pull this yarn, you'll see that the body shape is starting to take place. And I have a bobby pin just running across here, and this is by no means going to be the shape it ends up being, but I'm just going to, just to kind of keep it going up in that direction so I can visually see how the head's going to go on. I'm going to start stuffing out the neck a little at a time, because once we cinch up the nose, no more is going in. So I'm going to just be pulling it up and imagining it cinched up all the way. And I think I have enough in here. I'm going to snug this inner one up a little bit more. I'll have just enough room to put a tiny little bit more in if I keep 2 fingers in here. Okay. Okay, well, I think that's pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and snug this one up on the inside, pull the side one done. We're going to have a little ball on the end. We're going to shape its neck. I like the eyes a little further up, but I still love the little brown one. And as far as I'm concerned, it was a success. This is just a little fine tuning. Okay, so when I put the ball on, I actually used these and went in the ball, took the other one, went through the ball, tied it off, and then went around with another piece of yarn. So I'm going to just leave them hanging here. I definitely need to come up a little higher. So here's going to be the back of my neck. I'm going to go ahead and come up higher onto the neck with this yarn. It's you're imagining where you think the neck would start if you were going to put a collar on it. Okay, so I'm going to come up, tell you how many rows back from the back where the back of the eye is. I'm 1, 2, 3, about 4 back. So I'm going to try that now. And really cinch it up because we want it to sit on top of a pretty small base like this. So get it cinched. Okay, I'm going to tie a knot in here. Okay, holding it up. I think that's pretty perfect. So I can still just get another knot in here. And then because I'm not sure about where that knot is because I came out the same hole, I'm going to thread up this one end of the yarn and go down into my body. And come back up and tie it again, and that way I know that my knot's not going to go back down through that hole. Snug it up again. Give it, I do 3 knots because I'm going to do true confessions and say that the first little brown one I did, I thought I had it knotted pretty good, and then when I was sewing with it, it came untied at the top up here and pulled out. I was so surprised. But it was an easy fix. I just rethreaded it back up again. Okay, we have our little seal shape. We can take our bobby pin out. And it's going to sit up on the base. And we need some front fins now. So I'm going to pop these out. I'm making them 3 rows shorter than the little prototype. His fins are adorable, but I thought maybe just a tiny bit longer than they needed to be. So these are 12, and this is my cast off row because it's going to have the neater stitches. This is the cast on row, so that's the one I'm cinching like a beanie on both of them. Tie a knot, then we're going to just bring it around because they're going to be too fat that way. So when we actually sew them on, we're going to sew them on a little narrower with the frilly little fin. So put a nice knot at the top, cinched up, and then have your row, your tail at the end of your row here. If it's long enough that you can cinch this up now, because we don't want it to be so wide as the tail fin. We're actually trying to narrow this one down. So let's go over 3 fingers. Now you should have plenty of yarn to just whip stitch this close by going under the double loops, double loops, double loops to the end and snug it up over your 3 fingers. When you get to the end, tie it off, bury your thread. So we'll have it tied here. We'll have it over 3 fingers, whip stitched here, and the thread buried. We can sew with this thread. So this is the end of the fin. I have my yarn right out at the end. I have the knot down here, and I'm going to just be just like on the tail fin, going on under the double loops, coming over here and finding the double loop, and just going across. And you don't even have to do every single one of them. You can do every other one if you want to. We just want to hold it together. Alrighty, that is the end of our fin. We got that little ruffly look, like a real fish's fin has on the end, it's not straight across. It kind of goes like this, you know, where the ribs are. I'm going to bury that. Tie one more knot. We don't need to sew with this, so we'll just bring it up this way. And then to narrow this down, I still have a needle on here. We're going to roll where we cinched the beanie up to the inside. So when we sew it on to the body, we're going into the at least one row back from where we cinched it. So we get the nice sturdy stitches, not the long ones that are going over the cast on or cast off row. And let's, before we get started, bring it together back here with it rolled a little bit. Let's take a couple stitches, just bringing it to the center. And that's going to make the top of it narrower. Let's do a third one. And tie a knot. There we go. So now we've narrowed down the top, but we still have our frilly little fin on the bottom. Let's see, I'm left-handed, so I'm going to want to start from the left-hand side. So I'm just going to bring this out with it just rolled like this. So I have nice, neat stitches. Bring it out to the end of the row that I'm going to be sewing into here. And now I'm going to just press it onto my body and be going under the V stitches. If I want to stay one back off my beanie pool or two back, I'm going to go under the ones where the points are pointing this way, but it's optional. You can go under the ones going the other direction if you want to. Now, when we put the little collar on, it's going to give that neck some definition. So let's just imagine it cinched up. Let's put a bow on it. And that'll help us know where we're going to put our our fin. Okay, so maybe about this far down, and a bow. This is just showing us where we're going to put the collar. And that's also just decorative because we want it to be bright and cheerful and have a lot of colors in it. So we want the head to have a little back part. We want it to start coming towards the nose. And imagine a little ball up here. So here we have it. So put it up on top of your base, hold that little fin on, and imagine where you think it should be. And I think it should be right about there. So I'm going to just press it onto the body. And wherever it's touching the body, that's where I'm going to start sewing. I'm going to go in under a V-stitch on the body. And then come up. I'm going to just do one because we don't have very many to work with. Go under wherever it's touching the body, that's where I'm going in. Now I want to stay back in the V-stitch that's at least one row back from where we cinched. And then back right into the body. Find your row to go into that's underneath there. The next one pointing up. And there's a row right underneath it to go into. I want it just a little bit going back this way, just a little bit. So I'm going to spin it around a tiny bit. Get into my next V-stitch that's got the point going the same way as the other ones. Down into the next row. on my body, and I'm curving, so I'm curving around on that body. Okay, here's my next V-stitch going this way. And now I'm back on the body, so I'm going to be headed back down, made the curve, pressed down. This is going to be the row that I'm mattress stitching because it's the one that's closest to the body here. So I'm going to go under the bar, into a row, just headed down into a double bar now. Now, we're really loose right here, but when we start pulling this and snugging it all the way to where we started, all the way to here, we're going to make sure it's completely snugged up. That'll give us that really nice roll right here. I'm going to turn a little bit light on, hopefully. The glare. Let's see. Well, maybe not so much. Okay, so we made it around, and we want the fin to be able to flap out. So here's what it looks like on the underside. Let's just sew right around the bottom to where we started and tie it off. So I'm going to come into the body here, underneath. This is just tacking it down. Okay. Give it a snug and tie it off. I'm going to come back to the center underneath my fin to tie it, so there's no chance my knot is going to show. Do a double knot. Make sure it's all snugged up, that there's no loose thread going around the top of that fin. Okay. And I'm going to just feed this up and snip it off. And we have our fin on. Put it up on the pedestal, and we have our little fin coming down. Let's do the other side the same way. I want to add some bling to the little band that's going to go around the neck. Like this one's blue and it pops off that brown. But we have a pretty washed out gray seal here, so I cut out some purple felt, and it's this wide. I didn't even measure it. I just eyeballed it. And I know when it ties around the neck that I'm going to let it roll so that it's doubled up and much narrower. So I have some orange bling, and it is probably from Dollar General. It's called Crafter's Closet Gem Strips, and they came in different colors going across. They have adhesive on them, but I'm not going to trust that adhesive. So, untying my little bow, where we decided where we thought maybe the neck would be, I'm going to fold this in half. And let it fold in half so that it's not so wide on the neck, and it actually makes it a little sturdier. Bring it down into position. I'm going to tie it off to the side a little bit. Snug it up. Tie a knot so it's secure. And I'm going to shorten this just a bit. And so here's the collar. Going to just add some color, but I also want to get another color into it. So I'm going to do the orange bling. If this is hot enough, I just want to get a couple spots of glue on it. And it is a tiny little dot there because this does have adhesive on it. And get it right up to the knot. And press that in. Put another little dot of glue right on the back of the neck here, just to catch it again. Make sure it's permanent. And bring this right back into the glue. Bring it on around and maybe right here on the side, another little tiny dot of glue. That's just adding another little extra bling, getting them ready for the circus. Gonna come right up to the bow where I tied, it's actually a knot. One more little dot, bring it into it, and snip it off. You can use any kind of bling you want. So now this last little jewel is going to get a little spot of glue on it and pushing it down. And the little flap will come over it. Now we have some bling, a little bling. So we're blinged. I put 4 little stones around the bottom, just put a little tiny little dot of glue to get each end one. 4. You can use all kinds of different kinds of things to bedazzle. You might even have a bedazzler. I know I do. And we're going to just make sure that we like the way it's sitting up here. It's got its cute little flippers are flying. So cute. Want to make sure that we know that this is the back where the cord is coming out. So most likely it's going to sit like this on a nightstand. Like this. So perch it up on here. Make sure your tails, fins are up, your head, chest is up. And so right across the bottom here, securing it to the top of your light. So I'm starting under its paw on the back side, going under a row, up into my seal, under a row, up, under a row. And I want to keep the tail coming up. So I don't want to come down onto it. I want to stay up. Just working around. Coming around. Staying up. Right, snugging this up. Now it's pulling this one because that's loose, but I'm going to tie off to that. Now when I'm coming down the side, I'm just going more straight. I'm picking out my row that's resting right down on the top and mattress stitching in this one, but going into each row down below. So now I'm picking this row out. I know I'm left-handed, my hand's in the way. And this is the row that's sitting down, so I'm going to go under 2 bars. Find my next row. Go under the next 2 bars. And the next row. Until I'm back at the chest, and I'm going to do the chest just like I did the tail. I want to rock it up so that when I'm sewing back in here. So I'm not pulling it forward. So I'm going to come back to this tail where I started, staying back up over the edge of this, where sewing the seal where it touches, and we'll snug that up and we're almost done. I'm back around where I started, so I'm just holding on to my starting thread and snugging up till I feel the slack coming out of it. And I don't see any loops. Everything seems to be secured down. And I'm going to tie it and snug it up a little bit more. I'm going to put a third knot in there and bury the ends. And now I'm going to bring the 22 pin up and I'm going to make the ball. You can make it any way you want. I did this one in stripes. I might do smaller stripes on this one to get more stripes in. And I'll be right back when I get my Addi up and we'll put the final touch on. Off camera, I did 10 rows and I decided to go straight purple because it was a bright color and it needed something really bright up on its nose. But I'll show you how I blinged it in just a minute. But I went outside to feed the cat and picked up a rock, and I decided since this was plastic and my prototype was glass and had way more weight to it, I put a bunch of hot glue in the bottom here, and now I have it weighted down. I'm just going to screw this back on. And now I have some weight, and I feel happier about it. So we have our little seal sewn on. This is 10 rows, and I decided that the cinched up ends would be this direction so that I'd have a nice round top on it. So I just cinched it up, stuffed it out, so I got a nice little round ball shape, and then took the same bling I put on the collar and just wrapped orange, wrapped a yellow, and that's how I got my colors from my base up onto the ball, and it sparkles. So all in all, it's a pretty good look. So I would say that it's done. And what we have to do now is to plug it in. Oop. I wasn't ready for that, was I? And see what it looks like with the lights on. And there they both are. Both adorable. Cute little night lights. I think they're going to be a big hit. I love how their little fins just fly. And if you're a perfectionist and you want to do waste yarn on the end of the fins and on the end of the one row on your 60 row to have really nice, neat little fin ends, you can go ahead and do that. But I want this to be an easy tutorial. I do know how to use waste yarn. I've done it many times. And I think most people would find it frustrating if they were a little bit new. But there are a lot of videos that you can go watch that'll show you exactly how to do the waste yarn. And it would be in 3 places. One end of the tail and just the one end of each fin. But I like it frilly. I think it makes it look more fin-like. So here it is. I think they're both adorable. I think they're both going to look really, really good when we're doing our fundraiser in November. So now that I have an ending, I'm going to go film the beginning.